Good morning. So, this is me, Sarah, coming from the Cauldron of Curiosities. And you can probably tell it's a bit early. I've only had one coffee. I could probably do with some more. But I'm finally on my journey towards Scotland, and I'm in Cumbria. It's gently grey. I think we've got a little bit of rain is coming. Luckily, I took Bumblebee out for a quick leg stretch before this smattering of rain started. And I was driving along and I thought, why am I driving to Scotland and around? And originally, I had said I wanted to travel and that I would visit places in the UK that I'd never been, because the UK or Great Britain has got so many beautiful places that I haven't seen. But do I actually want to see places that everybody else goes to? Now, those of you that may have listened to other recordings of the Cauldron of Curiosities will know that I do like to find unusual places, and I prefer where it's woody, where the trees are, and where there's more nature, maybe even being in a town. Although you can't be a good antique shop in a town, you never know what you might find. My curiosity stretches itself and wants to know what's hidden behind the old China doll. So I'm here in a place near Kendal, and there's hawthorn hedges, and the grass is long with dandelion heads that have gone silver as they've started to seed, waiting for the wind to come along and blow them to start the cycle of life over again for the dandelion. When I was in Tissington, there were such large clumps of dandelions. I've never seen so many dandelion heads in one crown, and I wondered whether it's because it had never been exposed to any chemicals, and that's what dandelions looked like when they were left alone. Because there were over 20 heads, yellow heads on one single dandelion crown. It was absolutely amazing to see. And I have got photographs if anyone is interested. When we arrived last night, it was about 9:30, and I took Bumble along the footpath, which one side has been mown. It's been kept quite clear for people to walk up the hill. But opposite, there's a tiny gate, and it's well hidden and not often trod, going by the amount of overgrowth that's getting in your way. So you have to be quite determined if you want to go down the hill. And my curiosity, of course, is going, where does that path lead? And Bumble was very interested, so I suspect that the small path that there is has been left behind by a deer or a fox. And I never realised for many years that a lot of the paths that I used to follow as a child and as an adult weren't left behind by humans. They were actually the paths that the animals were naturally taking, and they'd left behind the lower grass, and you could see the way they had woven their way through the undergrowth. And I just used to think, oh, it must be accessible. And I used to go along and follow them. And I found all sorts of curious things as a result of that. And I used to take my children along and tell them they were going on a rabbit hunt. But it's funny because sometimes we do like to follow where other human beings have gone. And I ask myself that question when I'm going to Scotland: do I want to go where others have gone before me and left reviews? Or do I want to strike out on my own and find something new? What am I doing? Why am I going there? And why am I using all the diesel up to travel in that direction? And part of me said, well, what else are you going to do at this point? Well, I could actually be digging up my allotment and preparing that for the rest of the season, but my daughter has kindly taken on that job for me. But I did still think to myself, why am I doing this? Why am I meandering around and not doing a huge amount apart from looking and observing? Because we've been conditioned, haven't we, to be of use, to have a purpose, to have a project. Those of us who are raised in the working class find it difficult to sit around and not do very much and wait for others to do things for us. Maybe that's just me, but I realised that I have to have a purpose. I have to be involved in a project or two or three to keep me on the go. That stimulation is missing. And so searching for somewhere to visit, somewhere that's different, somewhere that I would be interested in its history, is what I'm currently doing, but I'm not quite sure what I'm looking for. I realised when I went into this magic shop in Tissington, it was amazing. It had some really quirky gifts in there, but it wasn't cheap. It was expensive, and I understand that some of the items were handcrafted and they were worth the money. And I thought, there's a lot of money made out of the aesthetic that we all like, and sometimes we aren't willing to do it ourselves, so we will pay extra to have that aesthetic. And as human beings, we spend a lot of time shopping, don't we? And I've observed myself. What am I doing today? Oh, I'm going to go for a wander around the shops. Why? Do you need anything? Do you need anything new? Oh, you need to get some lunch, but do you need to go anywhere else? Do you need to go buy those extra things that you're adding to your pockets or to your bag? Why do we collect things? Why am I wanting to go out and collect and gather new items? Why have I got sticks in my van? Why am I bringing all these things into my space? What's going on? What is it? Is it some sort of weird nesting technique that even though my children are grown, I'm still nesting, but I'm looking for things to make myself feel comfortable so I might feel okay to settle down? And it goes back to that, where are you going? What are you doing? And is this something that happens to you when you're in your 60s? I'm going to be 61 soon, in a couple of days. And I decided to give up my registration as a nurse because, for one reason, I don't see why I should have to pay to be a nurse, to be a registered nurse, because with the NMC, although they give you a code of conduct, as human beings, we should have a code of conduct that we are held to. And I'm not 100% sure that I should have to pay someone to oversee that. And it goes along the lines of, when we look at charities, we pay huge amounts of money into charities, and those charities pay huge amounts of money to their chief execs and other members of staff. Yet years ago, charities existed and people worked for them as volunteers, and they didn't get paid huge wages. And I think there's surely got to be some sort of middle ground, because it seems a lot of the donations that go towards charities, there's a huge chunk of it is going towards people's wages. And when you look at how many thousands of volunteers that some of these charities do have, maybe they should restructure, and it shouldn't be such a capitalist model. And do we actually need all of those charities? Now, you're probably thinking, where did that come from? Well, I do go into a lot of charity shops to buy books and things, but I remember a time when there weren't any, when the second-hand stuff was sold in the church jumble sale. And it used to happen quite regularly, but you couldn't just pop in and get second-hand stuff. There were some thrift stores, but not like there is now. And when I went into Matlock, there must be about 10 charity shops there or more, and in one street there's 6. Now they're popular, but how do they all compete with each other? And all of those charities have got chief execs that are getting like £200,000 wages. And that's where those donations. So you buying the book for £1 is a drop in the ocean when it comes to paying off that. But it did make me think, at my age, should I be volunteering in a charity shop? Because that's what a lot of people do when they no longer do the thing that they used to do full time. But I'm travelling. So maybe I'm travelling to avoid working in a charity shop. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do enjoy having my brain working, and I do keep my finger in coaching, which occasionally somebody comes forward and asks to be coached by me. But that never really took off in a way that I thought it would. I've done quite a lot of training, and I've trained others to become coaches, set up courses and things, and it never really became an avenue where I could say I had a successful business doing it. Now, some people say that was me, that's my fault. Did I lack the oomph to make that happen? And I don't know if it's partly because I like wandering off and going off and doing different things that meant that I don't have that presence that people are possibly looking for. But I put my CV into ChatGPT and it said, you've done too many things. You will confuse potential people who are interested in using your services because you've done so much. And so I've got a lie on my CV because I've done too much. Yet when I was in the army, we were encouraged to do training and to do courses and constantly keep ourselves up to date and learn new things. It really fed into my own personal curiosity. So all those things I learned, have I used them? Well, I know I have. And one of the things is I can see the pattern. I can see how it all comes together. And maybe that's the thing, is I need to make that clear and help other people see. How can I help you? How can I use my skills to help you? So I've travelled, not necessarily to always to lovely places. Some of them have been a bit dusty. And I've met people from different nations, and it's taught me a thing or two about communication. And it helps me take a step back and look at what is going on. And I've done a few different jobs. But my main career in the armed forces, see, it allowed me to travel, and it allowed me to work in different places, work with different people. And I moved around, and it gave me flexibility and new things to be getting on with. And obviously you have to do things that maybe you didn't want to be doing. But that's as with most jobs, there's some aspects that aren't as pleasant as others. So how can I use those to help other people? Well, if you've got any ideas, and maybe it's something I haven't thought of, why don't you comment below and let me know what you think I could be doing to help other people? Or is there a project that you think I could help you with? And there you go. There's a bit of a reach out. And, oh yeah, and I've wrote a book. Asked for feedback, but that's a bit slow. So I'm still waiting. Maybe I'll be waiting until I come back to this planet again. And I'll see it and go, oh, that book finally somebody did something with it. Not whilst I'm alive, though. So any thoughts and comments, do comment below, or you can always contact me at info@thedandelion.co.uk.